When looking back in history, many NBA fans consider the 1990s the pinnacle of basketball and the golden age. We had Michael Jordan, Hakeem Olajuwon, Charles Barkley. The uniforms were amazing, the finals matchups were great, and the way teams played was much more exciting than the modern NBA. Also in that era, it's one of the best point guards of all time, like Gary Payton, Kevin Johnson, Isaiah Thomas, Penny Hardaway, just to name a few. But out of that entire bunch, the best point guard and most consistent was undoubtedly John Stockton of the Utah Jazz. Now with that being said, in today's video, we'll look at Stockton's career, his overall highs and lows, and how good he was as an NBA player, and why he's better than you actually remember. So with that being said, let's get into it. Now when talking about John Stockton, there's some NBA fans who say he's overrated and his hype is overblown. And to a degree, I understand why they think that. As looking at John Stockton, he looks like your average dad at the YMCA. He's 6'1", $170, isn't that intimidating, and you couldn't imagine he's the NBA's leader in all-time assists. And that right there in a nutshell, that is the beauty of John Stockton. As despite all that, for nearly 20 years, he was giving a double-double on a nightly basis. Now of course you guys know Stockton, he was drafted in '84, he played in the 90s, as well as in the 2000s. But his real overall prime was from '88 to '97. During that time period, Stockton averaged 15.6 points per game, 12.8 assists, 2.6 steals on 52, 39, and 83 splits. He was a 9-time All-Star, 10-time All-NBA, 5-time All-Defensive, a 9-time assist leader, all consecutive, 2-time steals leader, and a 9-time games played leader. And among other players during that stretch, John Stockton, he was first in assists, as well as second in steals. And when it came to single seasons, he had 7 of the 10 highest assist average in a single year, including all the top 5. When it came to steals, he had 4 of the top 10 highest, including 4 out of the top 6. Also among NBA players who averaged at least 15 points per game, he was second in true shooting percentage, third in 2-point percentage, third in effective field goal percentage, 9th in 3-point percentage, and third in win shares. Stockton during his prime was the best playmaker, the best passer, and a pesky defender, making 5 all-defensive teams. In addition to that, he was a great shooter, he was clutch, he was efficient, and valuable to his Jazz teams. And speaking of Utah, during Stockton's playing career, they won 50-plus games 4 times, 55-plus games 4 times, and 60-plus games also 4 times. And when it comes to the win share stat, how valuable you are to your overall team, Stockton in his career was top 5 in that stat 8 times, top 10 3 times, and top 15 twice. So for nearly a decade, John Stockton was one of the top 5 most valuable players in the entire NBA, and for nearly 15 years, he was top 10 in that category. Also, one stat I found that was pretty mind-blowing is how good John Stockton was when it came to passing and consistency. Looking at games in NBA history for a single year, where a player had 10 plus assists, John Stockton has virtually every record. On this graphic at the far left, you have the season, in the middle, the number of games he had 10 plus assists, and on the far right, the rank in NBA history. For John Stockton, he's 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 7th, and 8th in 10 plus assist games for a single season. And if you do the exact same thing with assist average, he's 1st, 2nd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 10th. John Stockton, when it came to passing, he was an absolute machine, and being paired with superstar Karl Malone, the chemistry was simply off the charts. Now once again looking at prime John Stockton, this time let's look at his playoff resume from '88 to '97. During that time period, he averaged 15.6 points per game, 11.8 assists, 2.0 steals on 47, 32, and 83 splits. He was an 8-time assist leader, 1-time steals champ, and for the time period, he was 1st in assists, 4th in steals, 10th in points, and 15th in made 3-pointers. And for the entire decade, Utah's teams, they're always very competitive, on the verge of winning the championship. 4 times in the stretch, they made the Western Conference Finals, and 1 time the NBA Finals. And I will say for John Stockton, I think his best overall season, taking everything into account, was actually 1997, his first ever Finals appearance. Looking at that playoff run, he averaged 16.1 points per game, 9.6 assists, 1.7 steals, on very impressive 52, 38, and 86 splits. For that playoff run, he was first in assists, first in steals, second in win shares, fifth in points, and 15th in three-pointers made. And during that iconic playoff run, John Stockton, in Game 6 versus Houston in the Western Conference Finals, had a buzzer beater to send Utah to the NBA Finals. And one thing I do want to point out, John Stockton, when it came to the fourth quarters of games, was an absolute menace. In that series versus Houston, when it came to fourth quarter scoring, he averaged 8.2 points per game, the highest in the series, on 60% shooting and 95% from the line. To put that into perspective, John Stockton, for that entire series, only averaged 20.5 points per game. So nearly half his points came in the fourth quarter in the big-time crucial moments. Even looking to the NBA Finals versus the Bulls in that series, in the fourth quarters, he averaged 6.2 points per game, second to Jordan, but first on his team, on 45, 40, and 87 splits. And even going more in depth, look at the entire playoff run in the fourth quarters, he averaged 5.9 points per game, which is second in the NBA, on 51, 27, and 90 splits. In clutch time scoring the last 5 minutes of a game, he averaged 4 points per game on 77, 57, and 60 splits. For that category, once again, he was second in the NBA. And I find those stats very important and also very telling of how John Stockton was as a player. When it came to big time playoff moments, even just playoff games, he wasn't looking to score 30 or shoot 20 times. John Stockton's main job was to make his teammates better, pass the ball to open shooters, and when it came to the fourth quarter, be ready to hit the big time shots. It is sort of unfortunate that Stockton, he was too unselfish and didn't shoot 17 even 20 times per game. And looking at his playoff career, only 9 times you take over 12 shots per game. In those series, he averaged 17.8 points per game, 12.5 assists, 2.2 steals on 47, 29, and 83 splits. If he played in today's NBA, I could see him taking 15, even 17 shots per game. And when it comes to threes, probably around 5 per game. Now, also when looking at John Stockton, his playing career went into the early 2000s, and his longevity is unparalleled at the point guard position. Looking at older John Stockton, at age 37, he was an all-star. At age 39, he averaged 13.4 points per game. 17 times, he played every game of the season. From 85-97, he only missed 4 games, playing a total of 1,062. And from age 36 to 40, he played 82 games all 5 times, not missing 1 single game. And even at age 40, he still averaged 7.7 assists, and when it came to the playoffs, he's the oldest player ever to average 10 assists in a playoff series. And lastly, but most impressive, in his career total, he has 17,645 assists, combined playoffs, as well as regular season. Compared to other NBA players, he has 4,000 more than the second place finisher. Once again, John Stockton, his longevity is unprecedented, and how long he played is simply remarkable. And the last big time impressive stat I found for John Stockton, when it comes to his overall value, deals with plus minus. That stat for Stockton wasn't tracked until 1997. But even with that being said, from 97 to 03, John Stockton was one of 4 players with a plus minus above 4,000. The other players were Karl Malone, Shaq, as well as Tim Duncan. In the year 2000, age 37, he had a plus minus of plus 707, only behind Shaquille O'Neal, the MVP. Also that year, he was first in offensive rating, 6th in offensive box plus minus, and 7th in offensive win shares. The following year, in 01, at age 38, he had a plus minus 708, only behind Tim Duncan and Dirk Nowitzki. Once again this year, he was first in offensive rating, just above 120, he was 7th in box plus minus, and 10th in offensive win shares. John Stockton, at age 37 and 38, was still crazy valuable to his Jazz teams. And for a player like Stockton, who's only 6'1", to be in the same category as Shaq, Tim Duncan, as well as Dirk, when it comes to offensive value, is simply absurd. And when looking at John Stockton's career that spanned 19 seasons, the one thing I found very important is how consistent he is from year to year. He didn't have any crazy years averaging 25 points per game, that wasn't his style, but for a 10-year period from the late 80s to the late 90s, he was giving you 13 to even 14 assists per game. That kind of production before or since has never been seen. You can trash his playstyle, his look, he isn't very intimidating, only 6'1", but the one thing you can't deny is that John Stockton would have been good in any era, as he played in the 80s, the 90s, as well as the early 2000s. And looking around the NBA today, for quote-unquote pure point guards, those guys are few and far between, with Chris Paul being the last of vanguard. So in conclusion, John Stockton, he's better than you think, and his overall play goes further than his stats. As always, thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time.